As we were discussing prior to the break, issue number 3 now needs implementation, which will require some legislative and regulatory efforts. Joining me at our political roundtable is Representative Warwick Sabin, Democrat from Little Rock, State Senator Jon Woods, Republican from Springdale. Did I just introduce you as a Democrat?
I hope so.
I'm just making sure. All right. Republican Jon Woods from Springdale, and KATV's Alicia Dover. Thank you all for being here. Representative Sabin, Senator Woods, you were the co-authors of issue number 3, so let's let Alicia and I beat you up a little bit, because I know not enough people have been making fun of all the different aspects of this that people are confused about. So Alicia, first question.
Well, I think my first question is really kind of where do we go from here, and how long will it take to get clarification on this law?
Well, I think it's going to be fairly quick as legislating goes. We've already filed actually the first shell bill of the 90th General Assembly, which will convene the middle of next month. And what we're doing right now is we're putting the language together that will authorize the Ethics Commission to really be the arbiter of a lot of these questions as soon as we can enact that. And then we're also going to address whatever statutory language is necessary to enable what the voters pass through issue 3. So a lot of that is pretty straightforward. It's being done through the Bureau of Legislative Research. Of course, we're convening a lot of meetings with a lot of interested parties to make sure we're listening to everybody, we're taking their concerns very seriously, and we want to make sure that, you know, going forward there's no confusion and people get used to the new culture. But I will say real quickly, the culture has changed dramatically just since this issue passed, and I know the lobbying community and a lot of people are getting used to the fact that, you know, legislators now can't take gifts, and you know, corporations can't give political contributions, and these are major reforms. Yeah,
just a little bit back to the timeline though, Senator Woods, on this. So you guys get this bill passed how quickly in the state legislature so that it's codified, and then the Ethics Commission has what kind of timetable do you think for putting some of these rules in place?
Right, we had to bring this before the Joint State Agencies Committee during the session, and it was heavily vetted. We had to bring it, we had to pull it down in committee 3 or 4 different times, run it in each chamber several times, and many amendments to perfect it. And the way we wrote it and the voters approved it was that it went into effect immediately upon passage. So November 5th at November 4th at midnight, it went into effect while everyone was still having their election watch parties. So quickly, the center of attention in Arkansas politics shifted from who was our new governor and our new U.S. senator to, oh my goodness, we have new very strict ethics laws in Arkansas. What do we do?
But it could take months for some of this stuff to work its way through that rulemaking system.
Yeah, there's a rulemaking process, and of course, you know, the Ethics Commission will be charged with, you know, making those rules. And now that the voters have passed issue 1, the legislature will have the ability to review the rules as well. But I think our enabling legislation, authorizing the Ethics Commission to rule on some of this, will at least give this at the staff level of the Ethics Commission. So Graham Sloan, who runs it on a day-to-day basis, will at least be able to offer advice and opinions so that during the legislative session, people can at least have the benefit of that direction.
All right.
Yeah, and do you anticipate there being some level of confusion still, even as this is kind of making its way through? Can I drink this cup of coffee? I mean, is it going to come down to that?
So that's the confusion right now. We're getting a lot of those very kind of basic questions. Can I give a legislator an information sheet? Can I take a legislator on a tour of a facility? And yes, the cup of coffee question comes up literally every day. These are good questions, though, and you know, it's a change of culture, and it always takes a little bit of time to get used to that. But as I think everybody at this table knows, these rules are not very dissimilar to the ones that already exist in Washington, D.C. People operate with these rules in other places, and I'm frankly very glad that we're having these conversations and that now we're a little bit more careful about the relationships that sometimes become quid pro quo relationships when there's too many things of value being exchanged between elected officials and those who have interests in front of the government.
Citizens Commission is another component of this amendment, and this week we learned all of the appointments to the Citizens Commission. They have a very tight timetable to get some work done in terms of setting salaries for elected officials. Senator Woods, I know this was a big, very important to you. What are your expectations for what that commission's going to do?
The thought behind creating the Citizens Commission is to eliminate bad behavior. You have a lot of individuals that have been in the press, unfortunately, lately, and over the last few years, of doing things that they shouldn't be doing just to make ends meet, and making incomes from various ways to just to get by. And they shouldn't have been put in that situation. And because Arkansas is 49th in the country and 50th on salaries for elected officials, these politicians have sacrificed a lot of time being away from their family, being down in Little Rock. Private sector is very anti-friendly to lawmakers that sacrifice that much time in Little Rock. So we had to address that. And so you have to make it to where people can at least survive on a living wage. And so the Salary Commission was made up to eliminate bad behavior. That's why we created that.
Raises given, though, to elected officials.
There's no question that we're 49th or 50th in the country in salaries for Arkansas state legislators and governor on down. And I think it's wrong, and I think it's embarrassing. It needs to be fixed.
All right, we're going to have to take, we've got to go to a commercial break because our time is wrapped up here. And so we're going to take our conversation online if you guys will stick around. You do that?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to ask everybody to catch the second half of this interview online at talkbusiness.net. I'm with State Senator Jon Woods, Representative Warwick Sabin, KATV's Alicia Dover. We're back with a look at the week ahead when we return from this word from our sponsors.
A farmer understands the needs of every season, and so do Farm Bureau members. When Arkansas families needed electricity, our members brought it. Reliable roads, our members built them. Agricultural education, our members provided. Today's members may not live on a farm, but their connections are as close as ever. So when that difficult season comes, no member has to face it alone. For every season, Arkansas Farm Bureau. Join today.
I'm Roby Brock. This is Talk Business and Politics, and we are back with our Web Extra with State Representative Warwick Sabin, State Senator Jon Woods, KATV's Alicia Dover. We're talking about issue number 3, this confusing ethics reform, term limits, Citizens Commission thing that you guys passed.
I don't think it's confusing. I don't think it's confusing. I think political insiders think too much of themselves, and they think that the people are, unintelligent and can't make an informed decision. The ballot measure, the way we wrote it, was very straightforward, very simple to read, and the people liked it and they voted for it.
Do you really think it was straightforward, though? I mean, it said establishing term limits. That would indicate to any normal reader that they're not in place.
Everyone that I've talked to that was upset at the way that it said established term limits knows our current term limits. So I've not had anybody that has come up to me and said, hey, you lengthened term limits and I didn't know that I did that. I've not heard that. Everyone that has criticized the bill knows exactly what the bill does.
I've talked to a lot of people that were confused about the term limits provision in the law, that did not understand that they were voting to extend term limits. I've talked to people that have said that.
Give me their name.
I'm going to give them your phone
number. I'll talk to him. I think everyone in Arkansas knows that we've got the strictest, most unfair term limits in the country. And we decided to go ahead and stay as one of the 15 states that still has term limits. If you go to our conservative neighbors down in Texas and you talk about term limits, they think you're a socialist. They think term limits are a horrible idea. And so we could have done away with term limits, but we didn't want to. We decided to stick with it. And so Arkansas is still one of 15 states that has term limits. And that was a big compromise within itself, too. We could have done away with it, but we decided to keep it.
But why not just create the wording to say increasing term limits? Do you think it would have passed, and do you think people would have been more in tune with that?
It's interesting because a USA Today poll went very in-depth and explained the bill in detail, and it showed 57% approval. The polls that were done that showed it failing, I think, were poorly done and poorly written.
And below the belt come on now.
And it also it left out the cooling off period. It didn't go into detail about banning the gifts for the commission that was being established. And I think a lot of the polls that were done were the wording was very short, and the people wanted to know more. The USA Today poll is very in-depth, and the ballot was very in-depth, but the polls are very, very, very short, and people didn't feel like they had enough information to go off of.
Do you think that the term limits people come back in 2016 and bring a return to what term limits were before?
I mean, I think it's certainly a possibility, and that's definitely their right. I mean, as far as the term limits issue goes, I'm pretty much an agnostic. I brought this amendment initially just with the ethics provisions in it, and, a lot of people like to talk about, the lack of compromise and the dysfunction in Washington and all of that. Well, if you want to see an example of, compromise and people working together across party lines, I mean, I'm a Democrat, John's a Republican. We had to make a lot of compromises to get this amendment on the ballot. The term limits provision was one of those compromises. And so, this is how it works. And in a compromise, not everybody gets everything that they want. Everybody gives up a little bit to get something else. And in my mind, because we didn't alter the existing cumulative term limits that exist, it wasn't a drastic change in the existing term limits law. And what we got in exchange was a total ban on gifts from lobbyists to elected officials, a total ban on corporate contributions to political campaigns, and doubling the existing cooling off period from being a legislator to being a lobbyist from 1 year to 2 years. Those are significant reforms. They're some of the biggest ethics reforms that have been passed anywhere in the United States. And so, we have to take everything on measure. When I sell something, I don't get all the money I think I ought to get. When I buy something, I usually feel like I paid too much for it. But that's the nature of compromise.
I would got a question about the campaign contributions portion of this. So obviously, it limits or restricts corporate campaign contributions. I am of the belief that money always is like water. It's going to find a way to get through. It's going to find a way to get back to the bottom of the hill where it's wanting to go. How do you envision campaign contributions working under this new restriction? Because corporations are not going to quit giving money to political candidates. They're just going to have to go a more circuitous route.
Well, they'll form political action committees probably, because political action committees, are allowed to give contributions under the existing law. To use your water analogy, when you've got a leak and you've got lots of different holes, what do? You start plugging them one by one. You can't necessarily stop them all at the same time, and water will find a way to get through usually. I think the biggest problem we have now is the Citizens United ruling that came down from the Supreme Court a couple of years ago that allows all the soft money and all the unaccountable money. At least with political action committees, there's a registration process, there's a reporting process, and all of that. And so for me, in a lot of ways, the ban on corporate contributions limits the amount of money that any one person can give and direct to campaigns because they control multiple corporations. Political action committees work a lot differently and have stricter reporting requirements. But there's nothing we can do at the state level to stop the soft money, and that's something we need to reckon with nationally.
Right, and do you think, though, this will have some unintended consequences, such as giving a lot more power to the PACs now and even creating unlobbyists, so to say, people who just kind of hide in the shadows and aren't lobbyists on the forefront because of these rules?
We've been talking about that, and we've had many legislators that have approached us and suggested maybe increasing the individual dollar campaign amount from $2,000 to $2,500 or $3,500, and even as high as $5,000. So we're exploring those possibilities. But my experience, Washington County supported this measure 61%, and I was on TV, I was on the radio on campus of the U of A. In the newspapers, and there's a lot of places that I was out promoting this legislation, and the one part that came back that was most unpopular was the corporate ban. I think a lot of people love the no gifts, the no meals, and they love the salary commission. A lot of people like that, and but the corporate campaign contribution I found was even more controversial than the term limit aspect. I had a lot of people that came up to me and said, "I've always felt Arkansas is too strict. If we can loosen them up a little bit, I'd be for that. But I still want to keep term limits." And I was like, "Okay, well, this bill does that," and they were happy. But that corporate ban was very unpopular.
Yeah. Kind of speaking more to the issue of disclosure too, which the PAC arrangement would allow for, and we did see so much dark money in Arkansas in this last election cycle. Could there be a piece of legislation passed that just requires more disclosure of this soft money, these soft money groups that are out here nationally that come and play in Arkansas politics? I know Massachusetts, some other states have looked at doing this. It doesn't really restrict free speech, it just really provides more sunshine.
I would absolutely be in support of that, and obviously I can't speak for anybody else, any of my colleagues, but
you can go ahead, y'all can go ahead and form a bipartisan bill right now.
Well, we are working on some legislation together. We'll, soon reveal in January.
This is a great forum for you to reveal. This would be a perfect opportunity.
Well, we have a toolbox, and all your ideas, we keep putting them in there. So.
But more disclosure, more transparency, more accountability. That's what we need. I think that's what people want, especially when you've got that much money coming in. At some point, when the money gets so big, it's not just about supporting who you're for. I mean, people want to get something back for that, and that's where the problem is, and that's why we need to have accountability for that money that's in the system.
I'll give you a last chance at a question,
Sure,
or we'll wrap up.
getting
Either way.
back to the Citizens Commission, the salaries, talking about elected officials doing things they shouldn't because of money. Go back to Martha Schaffner, and you know, any irony there that Chuck Banks, her lawyer, is actually on this panel?
I think Chuck is well respected. I can't speak for the Chief Justice in the courts for why they chose him, other than I can speak for myself. I think he's well respected across party lines. And I think that was 99% of the reason why they put him on there, and he's very well liked. The thing about it, what's interesting that Chuck might bring to the commission is that, you know, Martha was put in a position in my opinion, she shouldn't have been put in. You know, the treasurer's salary is so bad that she had to make find out other ways to make ends
What
meet.
the salary was when she ran for the office.
I agree.
You can't live off that salary. Why run?
You want people in office that don't run for the money.
Right.
Absolutely. Governor made the statement the other day. I totally agree with him. You want people that are in office because they're passionate about public service. But she was put in a situation, in my opinion, she shouldn't have been put in. And I think if she was given a living wage for the hours required for that position, I'm willing to believe a lot of that is going to be eliminated because of the Salary Commission. And had the Salary Commission been created 10 years ago, it's possible she may not have ever been put in that position to have to do that.
Do you think there's going to be any legislative pushback if the Citizens Commission on Salaries comes and says, we think everybody ought to get a 30% raise?
That's a good question. I mean, I wouldn't know how to predict that. I think that, you know, what the Citizens Commission is going to have to do is balance the salary issue with the per diem and the expense reimbursement issues. And as you know, there have been some legal challenges to expense reimbursements, and that's considered kind of the most abused part maybe of the current system. But you know, we do have a situation where, you know, when you add up what legislators, let's say from Northwest Arkansas, receive through their salary and through their per diem and their mileage, you know, I think some of them are concerned that, you know, what they're getting now from that combination may be higher than maybe even what the Salary Commission comes back and says as a salary that maybe doesn't also allow for per diem and mileage and all of that. So in a way, some of these lawmakers, even if the salary goes way up, they may actually have a net loss on what they've been used to receiving because they're traveling long distances and spending more days in Little Rock. And so I'm not trying to even state an opinion one way or the other about it, but that's just the fact, and I think those are going to be the issues that the commission is going to have to weigh.
All right, I got to wrap up our time here. Now, this debate's going to continue at the Clinton School for Public Service on Monday, so anybody that's more interested in this can, if you're in Central Arkansas, you can go down to the Clinton Library. That's noon?
Noon,
Yep.
Clinton School, Monday.
All right,
That's right.
all right. Representative Sabin, Senator Woods, Elicia, thank you all very much. Very enlightening conversation, lots of fun.
Thank you.
You can keep up with the latest business and political headlines each and every day at talkbusiness.net. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for watching.